For years, Patty Loveless and Vince Gill have been one of country music's most beloved duos, their voices blending with a purity that felt almost spiritual. Fans always sensed their connection ran deeper than music, deeper than friendship, deeper than anything either of them ever said out loud. And now, at 68, Patty is finally revealing the truth, a truth she protected for years, even when it hurt. What she shares isn't scandal, and it isn't gossip. It's something far more powerful, something that will change the way fans hear every duet they ever recorded. And what Patty admits now will break your heart in ways you never expected. Long before Patty Loveless ever stood beside Vince Gill on a stage, she was carrying a heartbreak that nearly ended her career. After losing her beloved brother Roger, the man who pushed her to chase her dreams, guided her through Nashville, and believed in her more than anyone, Patty felt her world collapse. Her voice, once filled with fire, sounded empty. Her drive, once unstoppable, faded into grief. Nashville whispered that she might never return. The pain was that deep. When she met Vince, she wasn't looking for a collaborator, not even a friend. She was simply trying to survive. Vince, meanwhile, was facing struggles of his own. His marriage was unraveling, his career was shifting, and behind his easy smile was a loneliness he rarely admitted. Two people hurting quietly, crossing paths at a moment neither of them expected. Their first rehearsal wasn't magical, it was cautious. Patty sang softly, unsure of herself. Vince listened, not pushing, not correcting, just standing beside her, giving her space to breathe. When their voices finally intertwined, something happened neither of them could ignore. Their harmonies didn't just blend, they healed. Patty later said she felt Roger in the room that day, as if Vince's voice reached the part of her grief she never knew how to express. People noticed immediately. Fans said they sounded like they were born to sing together. Producers said their blend was otherworldly. But for Patty, it was simpler. Vince made her feel safe. Not romantically, not secretly. He simply understood loss. And he understood her. It was during the recording of Go Rest High on That Mountain that Patty realized the truth she would never say publicly for decades. When Vince asked her to sing harmony, she hesitated. The song was too personal, too raw, too close to the pain she still carried. But Vince didn't push. He simply said, "Only if your heart can handle it." And in that moment, Patty saw who he truly was. Not a superstar, not a collaborator, but a man who cared more about her heart than the final recording. The world would later call their performance unmatched, spiritual, a duet that felt like prayer. But behind that perfection was a story of two broken people lifting each other through the darkest valleys of their lives. And the truth Patty reveals next is the part she has protected longer than anyone realized. As Patty's career slowly regained its strength, the world saw her return to the spotlight with dignity and grace. What they didn't see was the quiet force standing behind her during the moments she almost walked away again. Vince Gill wasn't loud about his support. He wasn't dramatic. He simply showed up, in ways that mattered more than anyone ever knew. When Patty struggled to record after her brother's death, it was Vince who sat with her in the studio long after everyone else left. He wasn't there to fix her voice. He was there to remind her she still had one. Many nights, Patty would break down in the middle of a take, her grief catching her breath. And each time, Vince would gently step into the booth, place a hand on her shoulder, and tell her, "You don't have to be strong. Just be honest." Slowly, Patty realized he wasn't just another artist. He was a safe place in an industry that often demanded perfection instead of humanity. But the most powerful truth came during a tour they shared in the early 2000s. Patty had been struggling silently, her marriage strained, her confidence shaken again by family health issues. She was exhausted, emotionally drained in a way she couldn't explain to anyone. Vince noticed long before she said a word. He adjusted his schedule to ensure she never traveled alone. He rearranged rehearsals so she could rest. He even shielded her from industry pressures, stepping between her and executives who pushed too hard. To fans, they were simply two friends harmonizing beautifully on stage. But behind the scenes, Vince was holding her together when she felt she was falling apart. Patty later admitted that Vince was one of the only people who saw how much pain she was carrying and never once used it against her, never once pushed her beyond what she could handle. In a world full of managers, producers, and critics who saw her as a product, Vince saw her as a person. And the truth Patty finally shares is the moment when their bond crossed from musical magic into a kind of emotional loyalty she never expected from anyone, especially in Nashville. For years, fans speculated about the connection between Patty Loveless and Vince Gill. Some called it chemistry, others called it fate. But Patty always stayed quiet. Not out of secrecy, but out of respect. Their bond was never romantic, and that was exactly why it was so powerful. What they shared was something deeper, a kind of emotional refuge neither of them found easily in the music industry. The moment Patty finally understood the full weight of their connection came during the tribute performance for her late brother, long after the cameras stopped rolling. Patty had held herself together during the song, but when the lights dimmed, she broke, the grief pouring out of her in a way she could no longer contain. Before anyone else could reach her, Vince stepped in, wrapped his arms around her, and held her as she cried. Not as a duet partner, not as a fellow artist, but as someone who felt her pain as if it were his own. She later said that was the moment she realized something she had spent years avoiding. Vince wasn't just a friend who harmonized with her. He was the person who kept her from disappearing into her grief altogether. He was the voice that steadied her when she faltered, the presence that reminded her she still had worth, and the one person who understood the heaviness she carried without ever asking her to explain it. When Patty finally revealed the truth, she said it simply. He was the one who helped me find my voice again, not the singer, the woman. Now, at 68, Patty Loveless is finally saying the words she held back for decades. Not a confession of scandal, and not a dramatic reveal, but an acknowledgement of the one bond that carried her through the darkest valleys of her life. She said Vince Gill was the person who helped her stand when grief crushed her voice, the person who listened when the world wanted her to perform, and the friend who guarded her heart when she didn't know how to protect it herself. Patty didn't say he saved her career. She said he saved her. And with those words, the truth finally came full circle. Not a rumor, not speculation, but the quiet, heartbreaking honesty of a woman who survived because someone cared enough to stay. In the end, Patty Loveless didn't reveal a scandal. She revealed gratitude. A truth shaped by loss, healing, and the quiet loyalty of a friend who never left her side. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold journeys behind country music's greatest hearts.